Hey everybody, it's your best friend Patrick Fair, and today we are back with another fistful of cards Doomtown Reloaded deck building guide. On the docket for today is an Abomination 4th ring deck. More specifically, we're talking about Abomination Meat Grinder decks. So, first things first, who is this for and what is our goal? If you are the kind of player who really likes to play poker a lot during Doomtown, or you're the kind of player who likes to annoy your opponent to death, then this might be a good fit for you. Our goal is to protect our control points with a conga line of casualty-soaking abominations, and to out-tie our opponents through sheer numbers as well as resurrection effects. We're going to try and do a faster video. I know the last video ran a little bit long, so instead of going through every single card and why it's important and what you can do with it, I'm going to just give you the overview of what the deck does best and how we're going to enforce those things. We're going to start off a little bit by talking about our structure. Now, what do I mean when I say that this is a grinder deck? Now, most decks have the same structure in Doomtown. The most common structure in the game is 16-16-X, which means that we have two values at 16 and we have X supporting cards either completely off value or secondary value like we had in our Law Dogs deck, or anything in between. Which means that most decks that you come across will look to play legal full houses. Now in Doomtown, if both you and I are playing and we both have a legal full house and a shootout, then that means that we tie. Now tying in Doomtown doesn't mean that we both walk away scot-free or we go another round or anything like that. It means that we both take a casualty. Now taking a casualty essentially means that you lose a dude unless you've got some sort of trick up your sleeve to reduce casualties or something like that. Meat grinder decks lose dudes but do not care because they either A, play a lot of dudes, something like a meat grinder deck out of Sloan, or they have a lot of ways of bringing dudes back, which is what we have. We're not only running 18 dudes, as you can see by our deck, but we also have multiple ways of bringing those dudes back, and that's the key of the deck, is that what we're going to be doing is we're going to be combining our ability to stay in the game with Oddities of Nature, which gives us +1 influence while we're in the town square, as long as we've got abominations, and we have tons and tons of abominations. So our abominations are going to sit in town square. We're going to generate extra bulk influence so that our opponent is more encouraged to come out and fight into us, which is exactly what we want. We're going to tie our opponent, taking minimal casualties as often as possible, which is going to be, we both take one, let's go another round. We both take one, let's go another round. And that's kind of the mentality that you need to be able to play, which is why I said that if you are someone who likes to play a lot of poker over and over and over again, then this is a deck for you, because this deck really loves to fight forever. We have the following cards: Soul Cage and Ivor Holly XP. Now, Soul Cage is sort of the key component of the deck, and whether or not you like the sort of loose way that this card works is going to really determine whether or not you're going to enjoy this deck. So Soul Cage is a cheating resolution that allows you to get abominations from your discard pile or boot hill, provided that your opponent's illegal hand rank is equal to or higher than the cost of the person. So I said that in a little bit backwards, but basically what it means is that in low ball or in a shootout, if your opponent cheats, you can look at their hand rank, and let's say they had a cheating full house, where a cheating full house is a hand rank 7. So we can look through our dudes, and any of them that are in the discard pile that cost 7 or less, we can get for free by booting a Soul Cage. Now this is particularly powerful in low ball, because during low ball, your opponent doesn't really have any choice whether they cheat or not. It's just the top 5 cards of their deck. And if they cheating 3 of a kind, you can get dudes that cost 4 or less, and you can get things like Skinwalkers for free, or Brutes for free, or Joes for free. And that's going to be a lot of the deck. Going back to our meat grinder discussion, it's very, very easy to win these ties if I'm capable of playing a dude every turn. most Doomtown decks are not designed to play a dude every single turn. There's other things that you want to spend your money on. You want to buy more economy through your deeds. You want to buy control points. You want to buy goods. You want to buy spells to make your dudes better. But most decks aren't designed to specifically just put a bunch of dudes into play. This deck is. And so when we tie and we lose, we're actually doing what we want to do. We're just, well, not when we lose, but when we tie and we lose a dude, that's fine because we can bring them back faster than most other decks can. Now, Ivor Hawley complements this. He's an Abomination himself. He's a Huckster 3. We can't take advantage of that. However, his cost is reduced. His cost, as you can tell, is 9. His cost is reduced by 1 for each Abomination in play or Boot Hill. That's not your Abominations or Boot Hill, so be sure to pay attention, especially if you're playing against an opposing 4th ring or an opposing 108, because a lot of times those decks will include Abominations just because they're on value or they're decent dudes. But in this particular deck, as you can see, we're running tons and tons of Abominations, and so our cost will oftentimes be reduced easily by 5, by 6. You can easily play Ivor Hawley for 3 or 4 Ghost Rock. And when he comes into play, he takes 2 Abominations from Boot Hill, puts them into play, reducing their costs by 3. And herein lies more of the same. And so in a perfect world, let's say that you had a Soul Cage and your opponent cheated and they pulled a cheating 3 of a kind or something like that, and you went and you were like, okay, well, I'm going to go get a Skinwalker for free. That puts me up to 6 Abominations in play. I'm going to go play Ivor Hawley for 3. And he's going to go grab Joe and the Brute from my Boot Hill because I used them as casualty soak earlier in the game. I'm going to go put them into play for free. And so all of a sudden, whereas most decks aren't designed to put a single dude into play every turn, you've effectively put 4 dudes into play in a single turn. And so as you can see, the just numbers of casualties that this deck can soak is considerably high, and that's not including things like the Brute, which you'll be cycling quite often in this deck, which can just cover 4 casualties by himself. In addition, we have some complementary cards here that I'm going to go through a little bit. We do have slightly lower than average influence because, excuse my phone, sorry. We do have slightly then lower influence because we are Abominations. We cover a little bit of that with Oddities of Nature, but that doesn't allow us to stop our opponent's production, nor does it allow us to capture a couple of control points to sort of push us into a victory position. And so we're running a couple of fancy new hats to just give some of our cheaper dudes influence so that they might be able to contest production and contest our opponent's control points. We're running a couple of sort of just generically powerful shootout resolutions and shootout effects. We're running Sun in Your Eyes. We're running Point Blank. Now, I wouldn't necessarily do 2 and 2 and 2 like this. I just wanted to show you guys a couple of options that you could go with, depending on what your taste in. If you are trying to get the most out of tying as you possibly can, you can play Taking You With Me. And so if you tie and they tie and maybe you're losing the shootout, or you lose by a rank or something like that, you can still give your opponent casualties by playing Taking You With Me. Keep in mind that they are reacts, so you can play multiple of them off of the same trigger. So if I lose 1 guy, I can play 3 Taking You With Me's and my opponent takes 3 casualties. Is something that can happen if you're running enough of them. But by and large, we're just making our opponent a little bit worse, so they're more likely to either lose to us or tie us. And both of those essentially are the same thing in this deck. We are running Sun in Your Eyes, which is just a generically good thing. This helps us counteract some of the very, very large dudes that our opponents might be running, especially if they're running something like weapon gadgets that can produce 6 studs quite easily. This can turn them into withdraws, reduce their bullets, which effectively makes them considerably worse or useless. We're running Point Blank because you should in every deck that you build that can actually get it to work. Just a generically good card. We do run a lot of high studs. We don't have any bullet increasers, but we have things like Eve Henry and Tauntaun, which both are 3 studs, so we might as well take advantage of Point Blank. We can also reduce our opponents a little bit by either running Nightmare at Noon or Sun in Your Eyes, and that can reduce our opponent's bullets, which puts them into a better position for using a Point Blank. We have some kidnappings. Kidnapping is a staple. Learn how to play it, learn how to love it. In this particular deck, it has a couple of extra synergies that I would encourage you to take advantage of. One, because we're getting a lot of our dudes for free, and because we're able to put a lot of dudes into play for free, there is nothing wrong with sending a single dude, especially if that dude is an abomination, against your opponent's dude. Like, you might say, well, I'm just going to use Soul Cage, get Eve into play, and I can't really pay Eve's upkeep, but I am going to throw her at my opponent with a kidnapping. And you might lose Eve, but that's fine. You can always get her back later. And that kind of mentality is, how much can I squeeze out of you with as little commitment from myself as possible, is going to really be even more powerful in a deck that can generate a lot of dudes very, very quickly. In addition, you can use kidnapping for the standard, like I boot all my guys in to go kill an important dude and things like that. But I would highly recommend learning to sort of throw, I guess you could say, throw dudes away at sort of risky kidnappings, because you can take advantage of your opponent's fear. If my Irving Patterson is being targeted by your Eve Henry kidnapping, I might just boot a couple of guys home to defend Irving, which clears up your board, which clears up your Abomination line to maybe go and take my deeds, take my production. So taking advantage of the things that happen because of kidnapping and your opponent's fear of kidnapping might be more useful to this deck than actually discarding your opponent's dude, which is just icing on the cake in reality. And so overall, that is essentially the backbone of the deck. If you're concerned that we're only 2 value, we're 16/16, X, and X is not a tertiary value like it was in the Law Dogs deck where we had off value 8s. This deck does not have that. We have just a bunch of back up abominations that we can fetch with Soul Cage, and we want to make sure that there are as many of them in our discard pile as possible. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this attempt at a shorter format, more streamlined discussion. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys liked it, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing. If you guys hated it, give it a thumbs down. Either way, I want to see you guys in the comments section, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.